Yeah, I don't know where Kevin is.
Well, we don't have Billy here either.
Well, we were just talking about Billy because he's one that we need to get him a couple of those.
Can someone start a sign-in sheet?
So,
That way I
apparently,
can-
you know well.
I don't have any
that
paper.
Final results are in.
Let's start down here.
demographics
Okay.
and
You want staff too?
precinct.
Sure. That way I can put it on the
I'll
list.
sign your name.
We'll go ahead and get started.
I mean, it was.
Call the meeting to order.
Everywhere, I think, ish.
And, okay. First item would be all of the minutes that are noted. Quinn and I were just talking, Dr. Siemens was working on the past due ones. I don't know who took.
I took January's, didn't I? Or did we already approve those?
Those have already been approved,
Okay, so we're good.
I believe.
Okay. All right, we'll move on to new business then.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if, I would beg the board's excuse if I have to leave, if we're not done by 8, which we usually are.
Okay,
I'll be, that's
You'll be-
why.
all right,
I think I'll be leaving a quorum behind.
all right.
In case there's any business to conduct, maybe you want to do it early.
All right, well, I think we're just going to be doing reports, so I think we would be all right. But if there's anything that you want Mike to hear on, and we don't get there by 10 of, let me know.
If I get started, I'll be way past 8.
Okay.
We know that.
Well,
We figured that.
you want to start now? That way we know you're cut off at 8. Is there anything on the agenda that is of particular interest to you that you would like to discuss while you're present?
Thank you. There's no damage I can do.
Okay.
I will say, everybody probably comment, I am glad that the vote's behind us, and I think it turned out the way I expected. Mr. Brady, I think made a speech that showed up on the interweb and promised that the people's, I'm paraphrasing now, that the people's concerns would be addressed, and they're not just going to rubber stamp this, that they're going to make sure that all the bases are covered, so that's reassuring.
I would presume that it would be the same process that they've used
It would
in
be-
most recent projects, so.
Right,
Yeah.
if anybody wonders, I mean, I'm guessing that they will approve, it would be hard not to approve the zoning change to plan unit development, and with that, then you get to negotiate the terms that do not follow, and I think that would be the best way to address that kind of development. So it'll work out. We'll be licking our wounds for a while, but it'll work out.
Right, right. All right, very good. That was Battery Park, obviously, that we were speaking of, and I know Aaron Blair had indicated to me in emails in preparation for the meeting that she would not be here and that she had nothing new to report. So, but I want to keep it on the agenda so that when it's time for our input that we are able to give it out of this committee as well. So that's why it's on the agenda. So that being said, we'll go back and hit new business. Does anybody have any new business to bring forth before the committee?
Yeah.
All right. And we're passing around the attendance so that our acting secretary has that for the minutes. Thank you, Mark, for taking notes. I appreciate that. Mr. Klein, would you like to address the items on the agenda that you have info for, please?
Certainly, and I know the capital plan was recently released in draft form. I want to bring that to everybody's attention. There might be some projects that people might have questions on. Feel free to email. We're hoping to take it to the next commission meeting for second reading. and possibly passing it on an emergency basis that allows us to move forward with projects that are listed on there that we have not begun to move forward with. But I will bring up the Justice Center as that one. I guess there aren't any questions for me for Battery Park. I'm not overly involved. I can say that the consultant or the developer, the leaseholder, is moving forward, and I know there are discussions with ODNR about submerged land leases and things like that are going on, but it's really between them and ODNR at this point. But I'm hoping nobody has too many questions about Battery Park, because I'm ancillarily involved in that, not over the top.
What is the time frame on that?
I can get back to you on that. I don't know the exact time frame. I know there's still discussions between the city and the developer with the agreement, and there's some sticking points that they're still trying to work through. But I can get back to you on that.
Through the chair.
Yes, Mark.
The PUD, has that been completed, or they're still working on that?
They're still working on that as well. I am not involved in the PUD discussions,
Fair enough.
so I can't really answer that either.
From the Planning Commission meeting, that's going to be somewhat of that's not going to be a quick process necessarily, but the PUD. because
Well, it's up to the board.
Yeah.
How, it could go anywhere from the board could simply approve what staff negotiates, or it could get more involved in that. So I can't predict how it will go, but the city does have the power to negotiate
Right.
And
various terms before they approve it. And I think, I know that certainly the planning board did recommend the zoning change, so where it goes from there, precedent was that in the past, this planning commission wasn't always involved in that negotiation. In the last one, and it didn't serve us really well because it failed. It was negotiated at a different level, and I don't know if that's part of the problem, but anyway, it didn't work. It never was completed.
You're talking about in '08?
Yeah, the current plan, I think, is a much better plan. It does a better job of, it actually increases the access to the waterfront, and it's going to be in the details. The problem's going to be the terms of how this all happens and what assurances there are that, number one, that well, the most important thing is, will it be completed per design, or will it be like just partially completed, and then, so there are a lot of details to deal with.
Thank you, Mike. I know you're more well-versed in that area than I am, so I appreciate it.
Not terribly so.
All right. Thanks, Aaron.
yeah, and what I think what the best course of action that I can state on the battery park as a whole is that with the vote from Tuesday, I think that gives staff an opportunity to now start moving forward and re-engaging, and hopefully there can be a better update on things and questions at the April meeting. I know there's a series of discussions set up for March with the developer, so hopefully we can give you a better update on different things. So unfortunately, I don't have a lot of detail right now, but hopefully as we move forward, that can come to you. So.
Thank you. Understand.
One more question along that line. Aaron, if you're not particularly involved, presumably somebody from the planning, like Aaron or somebody, it'd be handy if they were available at next month's meeting to bring whoever is involved in the negotiation or can give us,
Okay.
the city's side of the table understanding of the process of the negotiations, if that's where we're still at.
So far, it's been the chief planner, I think, has been the point on it. Is that what you said?
There have been a lot of people, I've been in the discussions, but when it's really kind of the legal side of things, our law director's involved, we have several people involved for various components of it. But I'll defer to Quinn to make sure that she speaks with the planning division to make sure that somebody is here to answer questions or things like that, to give a report. I don't know if that'll be the law director, if that'll be somebody from planning or community development, or who exactly that will be, but I cannot attend the meeting in April, I believe, so hopefully somebody else will be able to be here.
Okay. Thank you. All right.
Moving on to item B, the Justice Center. I can give a quick update. I mean, everybody sees what's going on out there. They're still moving forward on the inside. We are still scheduled for late summer, early fall to move on to phase 2. They have done a lot of the exterior underground work for sewers and water lines and those types of things. So what people will see moving forward over the next several months will be mostly interior work. So it'll just be people going in and out. There's not a lot of update to give. It's just moving forward with the construction of that project. I will say, as we are approaching spring, that the drives to the sailing club have remained open. There are access points. We have worked with the developer or the leaseholder at Battery Park to make sure that they put an entrance off of the east end of Water Street. That drive that the contractor was using by the tennis courts, we asked them to maintain that as well. And that's across from Market Street. And then there's still the entrance on the west or the east side of the Justice Center off of Washington. So there's still those 3 access points. They might not be the most ideal locations, but there is access to the sailing club and Battery Park and the playgrounds and everything else as the project moves forward. So,
Question?
Yes, David.
When does the Gantt chart predict that project to be completed?
that project is still scheduled for completion spring of '24. We did have to delay it a month or 6 weeks because of just construction issues moving forward, but it was originally scheduled for May, I believe, so I think we're still spring, summer of next year.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you. Any other questions on the Justice Center? All right. Pathway.
Yes, many of you are familiar with Michelle Johnson, who was with EDG. She's been to many meetings. She's no longer with EDG, so we have a new project manager. And that project manager has really picked up where Michelle left off, and we're moving forward, still moving forward, focusing on acquisition for the pathway. We have a lot going on right now with the Edgewater portion of it and the Monroe portion of it. We're picking up steam on First Street as well and trying to get the old pier track from First Street, trying to figure out what we can do along those lines. So along that same project discussion, we still continue to move forward with East Water Street. That project is scheduled to bid sometime in April or May. That's from Franklin to Meigs to finalize that section of the pathway between the two completed portions of it. So that's going to start probably July or August. We've been in a lot of discussions with the Yacht Club and Mac Iron to make sure that we're not impacting them negatively. Everybody's been great to work with so far. We've had discussions as recently as yesterday with US Subaki to make sure that we're not impacting their shipping negatively, putting specific hours on there. Just everybody's been great to work with, telling us what helps them so that their businesses are not impacted, and we're doing everything we can to make accommodations. So that project is moving forward. We're still in the acquisition phase, but we do have the funds to acquire it in the capital plan right now, at least.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
could I ask if those plans are complete, or because how that will be executed, or is that still in the planning process?
We cannot complete the plans until we have all of the property, because we don't want to design it and then somebody says.
Of course, okay.
Yeah.
So I just put a plug in for maybe, since I don't think there's any parking out there now, is there, that diagonal parking on the south side would keep, I presume the pathway would go on the north side. Diagonal parking on the south side might create some overload parking. Striping it would tend to narrow the perceived roadway, and
Where are we talking?
yacht club. I'm sorry, did I not say that?
I don't know if there is diagonal parking out there right now.
I know, the idea is to provide some overflow parking and use the diagonal parking to narrow the perceived roadway and eliminate any parking on the north side that would obstruct views of the water.
Yeah, so the design that we have for the east water, that is done. That section is 99% done. We have the curb on the north side is being bumped south, and it's going to take on a similar off-road style of multi-use path, as it's going to kind of blend a little bit of what's on Shoreline Drive to Meg's to create that transition between the two styles.
Yeah.
We are going to provide parallel parking on the south side, because when we bump that curb south, there's not enough room for angled or any other style of parking, so we're going to provide parallel. But that's one of the things we're working with Mac Iron. We might need to put some time restrictions on the parallel parking on the west side of their delivery entrance to make sure that they have room to back up, things like that. So we're working through all those details right now. That's why I say 99% done, but there will be parallel parking on the south side.
So some of us kind of like, some disclosure of the process, as there was on Shoreline, some opportunities from input from various bodies, including the public.
Yes,
And I don't remember seeing anything.
those plans were put online on the city's website in January, and we went through the 1-month public comment period and received comments from the Yacht Club and Mac Iron, and those are the only ones. We put it out on social media to get on and comment as well, and that's part of the ODOT process that we go through on all of the projects funded through the
Did you see
MPO.
anything, Dave? I didn't see anything as a planning commissioner I was unaware of that at the time. Thank you. Did you say that? Yeah.
All right. Any other questions on the pathway?
I do have one. Were they, US Sabaki, did they finally give up on the barrier?
What we're doing on that section is, instead of a wall or a guardrail, we're going to put a couple bollards so the trucks don't go over onto the path, but we're giving enough room within that parking lot turnaround area that they currently use to be able to pull in forward and then back into the loading docks.
And who were you negotiating with, do you remember? Was it Kutzerellis?
Yes,
Okay, I thought Tom would take that over.
yes.
Sounds good.
He's been great to work with,
Yeah,
too.
he is, He's a great guy.
Very pro pathway.
Well, I kept him in the loop.
Good.
through
Thank you.
The whole time, so.
Good job.
It worked.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I did want to inject some, maybe being on the subject of the pathways might be the best. Are you going to talk about Cleveland Road at all?
No, I can. It's not on the agenda, but I can certainly
No,
talk
but
about it.
By all means, just because I got to scoot, if I could put in a plug for the idea of maybe, I don't know if we could recommend something or not, but everybody knows about Route 66. Well, Route 6 is starting to be recognized nationally and in Ohio. And I think there's a great opportunity for people living here to appreciate and recognize the history there. That was a very important route. Certainly this segment of it, it was at one time the longest route, US route in the country. The historic one it's a little shorter now because it doesn't go all the way to Long Beach, starting at like Provincetown. So it was the longest US route, sea to sea, literally. And it was really important to the history here, lots of little things that you can identify, in particular motels. And I brought this up 2-3 years ago to Shores and Islands, and I've been trying to plant seeds, and so far none of them have really sprouted, but we may miss opportunities as historic motels fall that could have viability as historic properties. And now I understand the one motel that is celebrating that history and is kind of delightful if you're traveling Route 6 on an historic tour is the Maples, and that seems to be in danger of being lost to, trying to fix a traffic problem, an intersection problem. So I'm starting to feel like now or never, let's identify Route 6 as an economic opportunity to promote tourism here and to recognize their history. And the sooner the better, I think, maybe. So I don't know if this body could think about it or would like to make some kind of resolution or recommendation to another body, but I think we have an opportunity, and it could diminish with time.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. And that kind of meshes with the pathway, because the pathway is going to run, along Route 6, and it all could dovetail. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Any other items or questions, comments on the pathway? Okay. The landing.
Yes, that project is still scheduled, going through the environmental reviews and going through all that environmental process. This is probably something that I'm not going to have any updates on until next year, because those processes are going to take about a year. We're submitting permits, the 404, 401s, all that stuff are getting sent in, and ODOT's finishing their environmentals, and once we get all of that done, we'll move forward as quickly as we can.
What's the estimate on the entire project?
Excuse me?
What's the estimate on the entire project?
On the ODOT, on the piece that we got funded through the raise right now is about 5.7, and that's the piece from the west side of Heminger Ditch to Cedar Point Drive. The portion where the landing is, where the park is, we're still going through those estimates and through those numbers, trying to comb through it with final design information, and I'm hoping to have those within the next 4 or 5 months, but honestly, we don't need that until next year, until we go to bid, so.
And just to
Thank you.
clarify, that was 5.7 mil.
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I got to bug out.
All right.
Could I put in one more little plug?
No, you're out of time.
It's 8 o'clock, Mike.
You don't have the gavel, sir. So I think, now that the election's over, I want to express my appreciation for the people who are concerned about protecting our parks, because I'm not the only one in this room that feels that way. And I think the spirit is correct to ensure the viability of our waterfront parks in perpetuity. So there might be another approach that we can all get behind. And I think we should leave our doors open to, and ideas open to how can we assure protect the parks in perpetuity in a way that everyone can get behind. That's all I have. Thank you very
Well
much.
said.
Thanks, Mike.
Excuse me.
Take care, Mike.
Take care, Mike. All right, I think we're through the landing and into Causeway wetlands.
Just real quick on the Cleveland Road comments from earlier. I don't know if
Okay.
Mr. King, being that that's outside the city, I'm not really overly involved with that piece. I'm sitting in on the meetings just for coordination purposes, but I don't know if Mr. King could put in I know on the pathway, we're trying to do some educational, historical type things. I don't know if those things are components of the piece outside the city.
Yeah, and I appreciate Mike's comments with regards to the maples and whatnot. He's absolutely correct. However, I think the roundabout at that intersection provides just a different pathway to get around the maples. I don't think it's not gonna eliminate access to the maples. So there will be a provision to access to the maples, but Mike's comments on the historical portion of that is not lost. So, and something that, and I'll bring it up to ODOT the next time we talk.
Okay.
I like the history part of it, and perhaps there's an opportunity for historical markers along the way. So, yeah, and hopefully it, the plan is to provide different access to the maples rather than eliminate access to the maples.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, David?
I feel this ball is rolling. I want to jump on. Yeah, I've heard Mike a lot longer than 3 years ago talking about Route 6, and the point is not lost on me. The Maple Motel in particular, though I think the owners feel definitely threatened, I think by us recognizing it and maybe a resolution or something or some resolve among us, that is really important, that we do want to see that maintain, not just survive, but thrive, that what I saw in the paper didn't seem like the death knell to that place, that the design can actually enhance and feature and spotlight that place to make it a shining little beacon of something that we have yet to define as a historic marker or a pathway of something that I've driven Route 6 years ago myself and independently sort of observed how all the places I've lived in my life seem to fall along Route 6 someplace from Iowa to much farther east, so.
Yeah,
We'll have to put a historic marker for every place that you lived around Route 6.
Not
then, David.
necessarily, that might draw the wrong kind of attention to Route 6.
We can consider this. I think there are two things. One is it is outside the city of Sandusky, so it really is not under the purview of this committee. And so I appreciate the comments. And secondly, I think we're doing it emotionally, and we really don't know what the real condition of that property is and how it's going to be impacted. That was, I think, an emotional piece in the register to some degree. And, I'd like to base it on facts. So, but I think we can do that as individuals rather than as the committee, since we're outside the city.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah. Tim.
I can pass along the comments of the committee short of doing a resolution. I understand your position. Absolutely, we can pass along the comments of the committee.
Sure.
Anecdotally, so if you're familiar in Huron County at 601 and 20, just north of the entrance to the racetrack, they just installed a new, one of the newer roundabouts. And the Golf Inn, which is the bar, restaurant that's right there at that intersection, had the same concerns. That they, being bar owners and not engineers, they didn't understand the construction style, the amount of right-of-way that it was going to require. And ODOT did accommodate them quite nicely and provided a special drive to their location off the roundabout. So it seems to have worked out.
Okay. Thank you.
The only negative by saying is that after you have a few beers, you just keep going around. I'm sorry.
I did see some tire tracks
Oh,
across
my
the grass.
gosh, there we go. We digress. All right. I still think we're circling back a long way to the Causeway wetlands.
Yes, that project, everybody's familiar with the portion that we've done already. There is a second round of dredging that is to be completed late this year, early next year by the Corps of Engineers. We are submitting permits to allow them to put their dredge material into the wetlands. It was always the plan to use it for 2 to 3 phases of dredging to accommodate the barges that come through the Moseley Channel. That project, we're also considering moving forward with a second phase. It would be the first step to that. It would be, if we go that route, would be to consider site selection and trying to figure out where the appropriate location for that second phase is. We've had discussions with folks. We've been involved with them, and we will continue to update the property owners in Cedar Point and all the other stakeholders as we move forward. The last thing we want to do is to create problems in the bay or for any of the users or anybody in that area. So we are very sensitive to all of the discussions that we've had to date and any of the topics that we would be moving forward with. So I was on some calls with the gentleman that was here a couple months ago. I was on calls with them, with stakeholders from the state, EPA, ODNR, directors, people like that, to make sure that Sandusky Bay is continuing to be moving forward with water quality, but also being sensitive to the people and the users of the bay. So I don't have too much of an update, but I do hope to bring at some point this spring a second contract to commission, still working out the details of the scope. But like I said, the site selection is a key component to that to make sure that we're doing it right.
I didn't catch, do you have a time frame for trying to make that identification, or?
No, I don't like setting time frames on things like that, because then I don't want to push the agenda and possibly make a mistake on selecting the location. I'd prefer to let that happen, just on its own. And then once that location is selected, then I'll set a timeline on the design. One of the good things that we know is that we might be able to take a year or two off of dredging, or we might have additional capacity in the existing one. So we're not going to rush this decision. We're going to move forward. Obviously, everything needs to run through City Commission and get their approvals and all of that stuff as well, so.
Okay, very good. Judy?
First of all, is the first cell filled to capacity?
No,
It looks like it,
no.
okay. And my next question is, what's going on with the update on the causeway?
I don't have an update on
Rebuilding
the
it, or the
causeway.
bridge, or
You'd
any
have
of
to-
that?
I don't
Is that
have
going
an-
to impact what you're going to do?
No, it won't.
Okay,
No, we built the wetlands, we designed it back in 2017, 2018 with the initial layout and the initial concept, with the understanding that the causeway someday, even if it was 40 years from now, might be expanded. Whether it's expanded to the east or to the west, we built this to accommodate that expansion. And what I can say is any of the armor stone that we're putting in there would only help with that project, because there would be less armor stone that they would need. So we haven't been brought into the discussions yet. I know they're still doing a lot of the preliminary work on the causeway expansion, but we haven't been brought into the discussions yet. And they've promised me that we will be when the time comes.
okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Good question.
Anything else on the wetlands? Okay. Then the next item is the Brownfields Assessment Grant, and we have an update via email from Colleen Gilson on that. Jonathan, did you want to add anything more? Or I mean, Aaron, I'm sorry. I saw Jonathan's name on the email and
No, I
had a brain fade.
No, Colleen gave me the permission to answer any questions that might come up. I know that she's moving forward. The first step is getting those contracts signed. There are some sites that they're going to be starting to identify here in the short term. She has 2 really good consultants on board, and the good thing about having 2 consultants is you're going to get good pricing. You're going to have them competing against each other for everything. So she's going about it in a very good manner to get the most bang for the buck on this, and to make sure that we're doing the site selection, and not only the selection, but also the phase 1s, phase 2s, remedial action plans, and all of those things, the assessments that are needed on any of those properties. So I anticipate over the next year there will be some sites, and they are trying to focus as much as they can on the waterfront.
Okay. Thank you for that update. Any questions? All right, seeing none. Any other old business that anyone has to bring forth? Okay, time for community input. Any comments? Oh.
Just listening.
Oh, okay, no problem. Thank you. Anything else that anyone has?
Comment.
Yes, Joe.
I travel Tiffin Ave all the time. When there's a heavy rain like we've been having, underneath that bridge, railroad tracks, there would be a huge lake. Whatever they did, it worked. There's no more water gathering underneath that bridge.
Great.
Kudos to the city.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
So completely unrelated to, somewhat related to the Bayfront corridor, I would like to thank, and perhaps you've heard, Abby Bemis is leaving Ecadec, and so she's going to leave some big shoes to be filled. I would like to thank her for her years of service. She's done a fantastic job. I met with a developer yesterday, and he said he travels around the country, and Abby was one of the best that he's ever dealt with. So kudos to Abby.
Good to hear. We've got a couple more months for her to be there, so.
Where's she going? What's she doing? I hadn't heard.
She is going to become the Chief Operating Officer of Payne Nicholson Company.
Where
I wonder who that is.
Where
I have nothing to do with it, thank you. I am retired. But
Feels great, doesn't it?
it feels great to be retired, yes. But my understanding is she's leaving Ecadec sometime in the summer,
Just a couple months.
so.
Can I make one more
Sure.
plug for the
Yes.
capital plan real quick? Just, there are some projects that that this committee would be interested in, so I do encourage you to go look at that capital plan. One that I'd like to point out, we're considering doing some sidewalk work within Shoreline Park. We've done a lot of concrete work along that western finger. We're trying to now connect the parking lot with Warren Street bidding out this year and East Water Street bidding out this year. We're hoping to connect different nodes and make it more accessible, because right now the only way to get to that concrete that we poured before is through the drive area, the asphalt. So there are some minor projects, not as big as the ones that we've done in the past, but if you do have any questions, please let me know. Hopefully at the next meeting that I'm at, what I can do is maybe add all of the projects that are along the waterfront to the agenda, and I can give a brief update once they're approved by commission.
Thank you. All right. There's been a motion to adjourn by Mark.
Second.
All right, we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for your input today.